So good morning, everyone, and I'm happy to open this day. And we have a festival of mind, and mind is already kind of a festival as such. And one of the biggest fireworks of this festival is emotions that we have. One of the biggest attractions of this festival, most entertaining, maybe one of the most entertaining things there. And before I proceed to emotions, I would like to make a short outline. Why do we need mind? And this is not a question that we often ask ourselves. Why the hell do we need mind? And then the answer is quite simple, because what is the purpose of living beings? What is the purpose? The purpose is to survive. So this is our main goal. This is basically what we are doing in our lives. We are surviving. We are continuing our existence. And we are continuing our existence either as individuals or as groups, as a nation or society or humankind, or like all living beings together in a way. But this is our main task, to survive in a way. I mean, there are many other tasks, but if you don't survive, other tasks cannot be completed as well. So we need mind to survive. And how do we use mind to survive? And the answer is quite simple. We use mind to predict the future. We need mind to know the future, because if you don't know the future, it's very difficult to survive. Because the world is changing all the time, and if we cannot predict, if we don't know what's going to happen, we don't have many chances. And we take experience from the past, we use experience from the past, and we keep it in our memory, which is also part of mind, function of mind. And then we compute something, we calculate to predict the future. We create models. I don't mean we create models consciously, sometimes consciously, but even unconsciously we create models. We project our future. So we need to understand how things happen. Like, for example, when you cross the road, for me, it's a little bit difficult in London because all British, they always drive the wrong side of the road. So I need to change my mind to predict from where they are coming. But fortunately, I was born in the Soviet Union, and I lived for many years in the Ukraine and Russia. So at least we have a habit to look both sides before crossing the road. Both sides, you cross one lane, and then you come to the middle of the road, you still look both sides because you never know what happens. So European countries are more predictable. And there are places which are not very much predictable, so we need to use mind to solve different kinds of problems. So we use mind to predict the future. And this is probably the main purpose. Of course, there are many, how they call it now, life hacks. Yeah. So we can find other ways to use mind to enjoy creativity or arts or whatever, puzzles, etc., to entertain ourselves, to entertain mind. But it's all secondary. So, but mind is not only a computer. It's not just computational. It's just part of mind. Mind has basically two main functions. Like our body. Our body has two main functions. One function is to perceive, to sense something, to receive information from outside but also from inside, like receptive function. And another function is to do something. It's like an organ, an instrument. So we can use our finger to touch something to understand if it's cold or hot. But also we can use the same finger, exactly the same point of our finger. We are using, for example, to turn on the light, turn off the light, or touch some sensitive points in our own body or someone else's body to feel pleasure or pain, for example, to cause different sensations. So these are two ways how we use our body. And with the mind, it's the same. So we can use mind as an organ. We perform things. Like, for example, we can shift attention. We can do computations. We can solve problems, etc., etc. But also we perceive something. We perceive something with our minds. For example, we have thoughts. No? Of course, there are people who wouldn't agree with me saying that the fact that we have thoughts cannot be proven scientifically. There is no scientific evidence we have thoughts. Even I have thoughts, you have thoughts, but these are just words. There is no scientific evidence. And in a way, this is true, that we cannot show our thoughts. We can say something, but there is no logic that can prove that we have thoughts. Like, for example, with dreams. Probably all people have dreams, but not really all. Maybe all have, but not everyone is aware. And I don't mean aware dreams, I don't mean lucid dreams, but I mean ordinary dreams. I met people who never remembered their dreams and never had this experience. And when other people were discussing dreams, they were saying, "You're lying. There is nothing like that. There are no dreams. You're telling lies." And then, of course, I met so many people who were saying that lucid dreams are lies. That's not possible. And it's very difficult to prove. I mean, even lucid dreams are more or less proved nowadays, but they are only proved to people who already understand there are dreams, at least. For people who don't believe in dreams, who don't have this experience, it's very difficult to prove. So about thoughts. You know, there are branches of psychology that say that we cannot prove our subjective experience, so it's not scientific, so we don't even talk about this. Okay, but we talk. So we have thoughts. Let's say that we have thoughts. We have thoughts, we have emotions, we have intentions, we have desires. But how do we know that? First of all, how do we ourselves know that we have thoughts? How? That's a kind of question. How do we know we have thoughts?
Well, self-evident.
Quite evident, yeah, but self-evident.
Why do we have to prove it to ourselves? We know.
Yeah, it's self-evident, but okay. Yeah.
Because we act on them. We can act.
Yeah, but this is not direct. This is like a logical proof. It's not direct. But how do we know? We know directly we have thoughts, right? Self-evident, that's true. But with what?
Awareness.
Yeah. We can say words. This is not a question that demands an answer in a word. Yeah. Because we can say mind, awareness, blah, 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 whatever, spaghetti monster, whatever. Yeah, doesn't really matter. But for example, when we see forms and colors, with what do we see them? With eyes, yeah? And for example, we can close our eyes and stop seeing, or turn off the light and stop seeing. And then we turn on the light and we see again. We open our eyes and we see again. And also with the sound, we can close our ears and open our ears. So we can at least point somewhere, and we can regulate how we perceive sounds. We can regulate how we perceive forms and colors. We can also regulate how we perceive, for example, smells, yeah? And tastes. And we can somehow regulate how we perceive bodily sensations. But with mind, with what? Where is that organ? At least all these organs we can, in a way, touch. It is something concrete for us. We can close and open. But with the mind, can we close our mind as easily as we close our eyes? Yeah, it's not so easy. Sometimes it closes by itself. Yeah? But we are not really controlling it. Sometimes we can learn to control. And for example, when we are meditating, when we are doing different kinds of meditation, in fact, a part of this process, a part of this contemplative training is to master our mind as an organ of senses. And for example, in Buddhist phenomenology, there is a special name for mind as an organ of senses which is perceiving like phenomena, like thoughts and emotions, etc., etc. And for example, we are observing thoughts, we notice thoughts. Where do we see them? What kind of reference point do we have to see thoughts and emotions, etc.? Oh, this is a question to think about, to explore, not a question to answer immediately. And in general, I'm not going to present like a coherent and consistent theory, but just to make some outline as a field for exploration. And but this is an important question, practical question. With what we see thoughts? How do we manage to see thoughts? Do thoughts exist when we don't see them? Yeah? This is not just a philosophy, because we know that even I'm not looking at something, even I close my eyes, but you do not disappear. I don't know for good or for bad, but you won't disappear. Also, if you close your eyes, I'm not going to disappear. I'm sorry. And but when we don't see thoughts, when we don't notice thoughts, do they exist the same way as physical objects exist when we are not looking at them, as sounds exist when we don't hear them? Do the thoughts exist the same way? And from contemplative experience, we can say yes. Of course, this cannot be proven, but we can say yes. And for example, when we start meditative training for calming down mind, one of the most common experiences that most people have is the experience that we discover that we have much more thoughts than usual. So when we were not meditating, we did not have that many thoughts. We still had some, but not that many. And then when we start meditating, it looks like we have increase of thoughts, like a fountain of thoughts, waterfall of thoughts. And maybe we think, oh, maybe better I don't meditate, then my mind is more calm if I don't meditate. But this experience is explained as the fact that there were thoughts, but in our ordinary state, we were not noticing them. We couldn't notice them. And when we start to concentrate, to calm down, to detach our senses from sensory distractions, we start to notice all that chaos of thoughts that is always happening in our minds and is controlling us. And we don't even notice that. We are not even aware how it is controlling us. So in a way, we can be called something unconscious, subconscious, whatever, but this is the point, that there are things in our mind that we don't notice, and we can learn to notice them. So the same thing with emotions. It's not always that we notice our emotions. We can have emotions, and this can be detected even scientifically, because there are already so many studies about emotions and explaining emotions like as combinations of different hormones, like increase of some hormones, decrease of other hormones, and there are maps of emotions like that. But maybe we have it physically, but we don't notice it. But with what we notice emotions, more or less with the same organ that we use for noticing thoughts, and also intentions, desires, etc., etc. So emotions are basically the objects of our minds. Not only minds, as we will see later, but partially objects of our minds, like thoughts are objects of our minds. And what are the issues with emotions? Why they are so important for us? So first of all, emotions make us act. When we have an emotion, like we have an emotion of fear, it changes our reactions. It can provoke our actions or it can inhibit our actions. So in any case, it's changing the way we act. When we are angry, it changes the way we act. And when we feel love, it changes the way we act. And sometimes we do something and later we regret. And then we say, oh, I'm so sorry I did that, but it was not really me doing that. It was my anger who made me do that. It was my jealousy that made me do that. Or it was my fear that made me do that. So it's like this anger, jealousy, fear are something like independent agent that have their power, and they can manipulate us. They can guide our actions. Of course, it doesn't take away the responsibility from us, but sometimes we feel like this, that we are guided by our emotions, our feelings. Then another thing that emotions do to us, they distort our perception. Like, for example, if we are angry, like irritated, then all little things hurt us. So when we are well, when we are relaxed, we just don't notice that. But when we are angry, when we are irritated, even the smallest thing can create a big disaster for us, and we become hypersensitive, and we overreact. And also, the way we see things, like for example, if we are conditioned by fear, then everywhere we see a danger. We see a danger on everyday level, like we are walking on streets, and when we see people who look certain way, we feel danger. Yeah? Or we read news, and when we hear the names of some countries, we feel danger, and whatever they do, these people or these countries, we feel that this is like a threat to us. So this idea of threat is mainly the result of our fear. Or if you have attachment, it also changes our perception. If you have jealousy, for example, let's say we have a girlfriend or boyfriend, and we are calling. And in general, we have this tendency of being jealous. And we are calling our girlfriend or our boyfriend, we call, and they don't answer. What happens to our imagination? Okay, if it is parents who call their children and children don't answer, then parents immediately have a picture of a bus, of a terrorist or whatever, and terrible because their emotion is mostly fear. Yeah? But if it is jealousy, and we are calling our girlfriend, then our mind makes pictures, and if those pictures could be transferred into video, maybe we would have made a lot of money on Pornhub. Yeah. So they distort perceptions, and emotions make us feel things. And emotions can make us feel good and can make us feel bad. And particularly nowadays, this generation, particularly in the countries which are well off, There is a big problem with emotions because people can no longer stand their emotions. You know, when, for example, you are in a situation of a war and there are difficult troubles, big troubles, or you have to survive and you really work hard day and night, really work hard, not thinking day and night saying I'm working, you know, but really working hard with your body, for example, carrying weights or working in a coal mine, etc. You don't really care about many things. And you don't care about small emotions like small insults, etc., etc. You don't care. But when you feel so nice, so secure, then even the smallest thing, even the smallest negative emotion is torturing, becomes a torture, and people don't know how to deal with that. Trying to ban everyone who is provoking negative emotions, but this is not possible. Even if we ban someone, there will be something else because it depends upon our condition. So then people have what we call psychological problems and they go to psychological treatments, etc., etc. And it can work for sure. But if we talk about contemplative approach to emotions, then instead of being in a position of a victim of an emotion, so we are a victim, the emotion is controlling us, the emotion is hurting us, the emotion is causing us act. This is a position of a victim. And then we go to a psychotherapist and we say that we don't like this situation of being a victim of emotion. Please remove this emotion from me. Or give me a pill, which is also a very characteristic thing for our civilization, that whatever happens, take a pill. Yeah. Whatever happens, you want to be smarter, take a pill. You want to have good relationship, take a pill. You want to have sex, take a pill, etc., etc. The problems with pills is that pills do not create neural connections. They only change hormonal background, but they do not create neural connections. So with pills, we cannot learn new skills. We cannot solve problems in a way like mathematically solve problems. This is what our brain is designed for, solving problems. We can just remove symptoms, but we don't solve the problem. So instead of being a victim, we can become an explorer, like a scientist, researcher. So we can learn how to observe emotions. And even they hurt, but it's okay. We can manage that. And when we observe emotions, we don't really need to remove them. And it becomes a kind of interesting occupation to observe emotions, to study them, to notice how they manifest in our own condition and on different levels of our condition. Like, for example, when we have some emotion, it can manifest on the level of body, and we can feel different sensations in different parts of our body. Like, for example, we can have weak legs, or we can have like trembling heart, or we can start to sweat, etc. Or we can have spastic feelings in our stomach, in our guts, etc. These are symptoms of emotions. These are indications we have emotions. And maybe it's not very pleasant. Sometimes it's pleasant, can be pleasant, but mostly it's not very pleasant. And also the functions of our body change. Like, for example, our respiration changes, how we breathe changes. We can start breathe deeply, or we can start breathe our breathing becomes very shallow, fast or slow, or it can be even blocked by our emotions. And we can notice this. And we can notice this and just observe, not trying to oppose that. And then also we can notice thoughts. And usually emotions are accompanied by the same type of thoughts. Like, for example, if we, from my personal experience, say that as soon as I have a thought, oh, I'm tired, it means that I feel something unpleasant about my own actions, and I don't want to perceive it directly. So as soon as I have a thought, I am tired, for me it's a signal. I need to check well, and then I find what's causing me think I'm tired. And then it becomes very interesting, because then I can release it, for example. So if you observe, we can notice the same thoughts that are accompanying the same emotions. And we feel these are our thoughts, but in a way, these are not really our thoughts. These are just thoughts that appear in our minds, but we are not really thinking them intentionally. So this we can all notice. And then when we observe emotions, we can discover different kinds of emotions. Like, for example, there are things that we call disturbing emotions. And actually, in terms of contemplative practice, when we say emotions, it doesn't really totally correspond to the idea of emotions in psychology. Because, for example, laziness, we also consider an emotion. And stupidity, like a dull state of mind, is also considered an emotion. Or like stubbornness is also considered an emotion, etc. But in general, it's very similar. So, disturbing emotions, first of all, we have a kind of horizontal relationship with different kinds of objects. And one is that we want to reject something. What we feel, we want to reject, and this generates a big range of emotions. And then there are things that we want to touch, we want to possess, we want to contact with, and this is another type of emotion. So this is like attraction and repulsion. And in the middle there is ignoring. When we don't notice and we don't want to notice, we are not interested to notice, we just ignore in different ways. It can be sleepiness, it can be distraction, there can be many things. Then there are emotions that are a kind of vertical, and they are based on comparison. And comparison means that I compare myself to you, and then I see something good that you have and I don't have, and I develop an emotion. Or I see something good I have and you don't have, and then I also develop an emotion. So these are emotions like jealousy, or it can be emotion of envy, or it can be emotion of superiority and pride and descending attitude and despise also. But it also can be an emotion, a positive emotion of being happy for you, that you have something good or you got rid of something bad. Because there are also positive emotions. And positive emotions, we can discover that they are very helpful from evolutionary point of view, because they help us to survive. Bad emotions are not always bad, because, for example, we usually say fear is not good. But if we had no fear, probably most of us wouldn't be alive. If you had no fear. So fear is saving our lives very often. And other emotions as well. But in general, we can discover that there are so many emotions that help us to free our minds, to calm our minds, to make our minds clear. And it's very interesting that in contemplative practices, the emotions that are positive in a way have their reference with the biological functions, biological attitude that helps us to continue our generations. Like attitude of a mother that loves the child, for example, or attitude of children who take care of their parents, etc. And these are the examples of emotions that help us to free our minds and to really feel better. Okay. And this is what I wanted to say. Of course, I wanted to say much more, but I don't have time for that already. Already I have Zen circle coming. Not yet, yeah. 20 seconds, you see. So, basically, it's about exploring our potential, because in real sense, when we say kindness or, like, for example, meanness of a person, these are not qualities of a person. These are phenomena that we can manifest. The same person can manifest kindness and hatred. And this is very important, that we have this potential that needs to be explored, and our own potential is only ourselves who can explore. So this is the brief outline of a contemplative approach to working with emotions. And if you're interested, you come tomorrow, and I will give a little workshop where we are going to work with our emotions. Okay, thank you.